Good morning and welcome. This is the second day of the workshop on invasive plants in Uganda. First of all, we are going to have Philemon and his UA colleagues, Joseph and Lawrence, who will be giving us an overview of the approaches they have taken in managing invasive species in a few of Uganda's national parks. Then after that, at about 10 o'clock, we will have Lorraine, and Lorraine will introduce biocontrol of invasive plant species and will then take the case study of Parthenium management. Then just before 11 o'clock, Malcolm will be joining us, and Malcolm will introduce us to the chemical control of invasive plant species, with particular reference to Dicrostachys cinerea, the sicklebush. And then closing up will be Gustav, who will explore with us the decision matrix of tools for invasive plant species management. So let's start the day. And Philemon, I would like to welcome you to take the stage. Since joining UA in 2012, Philemon has built a strong career in ecological research, habitat management, and anti-poaching operations and invasive species control. Now Research and Ecological Monitoring Officer for Queen Elizabeth Conservation Area, he applies his expertise to strengthen wildlife protection and ecosystem resilience. Philemon, I am going to stop sharing and the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for this opportunity to share our experience in invasive management, especially in protected areas in Uganda, where it is a very big problem. My presentation is about approaches that we have been taking to manage invasive species in Uganda, and I'm specifically going to talk about 3 protected areas where I have actively been participating in invasive management for the last, I think, 11 or 13 years since I joined the Uganda Wildlife Authority. We realized that it was a very big threat and a big problem, and I was lucky to be at the forefront of fighting this invasive plant species, and we have had some work that we have done, and the approaches we have been doing in all these 3 protected areas. They are not only these 3 protected areas, but all over the country. Uganda Wildlife Authority, as Dr. Carol shared yesterday, we are battling with this challenge of invasive, and we couldn't sit back to see what to do. As we continue to try different methods, we are working. We need to keep the habitat, we need to keep wildlife, we need to keep visitors coming in for us to get the revenue that we need to maintain our operations. So, thank you very much for a humble introduction. Yes, I'm Philemon Tumwebaze, an ecological monitoring and research officer for Queen Elizabeth Conservation Area, and I've been in this role for the last 12 years or 13 in all these protected areas. I started my career in Toro Wildlife Reserve, where I worked for 11 years. I went to Lake Mburo, where I have worked for 1.5 years, and I am now here in Queen, where the problem is enormous of invasive species. This will be my presentation outline. I will be giving you an overview of all the 3 protected areas, then the invasives in each of the protected areas, and the management approaches in each protected area, challenges and recommendations. Yes, I'm starting with Toro Wildlife Reserve, which is the 552 square kilometers, and it is located in western Uganda. You will see it in the map, and it was gazetted in 1926 as the first wildlife reserve in Uganda, basically because of the large antelopes that we had, elephants, and heartbeats, and lions. What you will see in the red, it means that those ones are no longer there. But the rest of what you see, we still have them in the reserve. This is its location. It is located in the extreme south, in the western Uganda, in the vicinity of Congo. Here, when you can look here, and this is how it looks like. It goes up to Lake Albert, and yes, that is the location of the Philemon Wildlife Reserve. Its vegetation is actually purely a savanna with riverine forests, this one that you see around, and the swampy vegetation, papyrus, and woodland. But basically, it is a savanna ecosystem protected area. Yes, invasive situation at Philemon Wildlife Reserve. As I have already mentioned, it is an open, or it used to be an open savanna ecosystem, punctuated with riverine forest, woodlands, and papyrus swamps. But in 2003, there was an influx of refugees from Congolese who crossed Uganda with big herds of cattle, and they had nowhere to stay. By then, they settled in the park and started grazing in the park. In 2006 and 2010, we had to chase them out because illegal grazing in the park, grazing domestic animals in the park, according to UWA laws or according to Ugandan laws or Uganda Wildlife Act law, it is illegal. So we had to push them out. And in 2012, we saw the areas where cattle were grazing started to close up with sickle bush. And we didn't take it serious at that time. And we also realized that after chasing the cattle out of the park to create space for domestic animals, for wildlife, we realized even that the fire regimes also started changing, and we started also seeing bush encroachment. We used to have clear seasons where we would know that June, July, August were mid-August were seasons for burning. Then December, January would be seasons for burning, but later that changed. We would have rain throughout the year, and we started seeing bush encroachment. So the pictures you are seeing here, this is how Philemon used it to look like, very open. And now this is what you can see with Dicrostachys cinerea. The picture you're seeing here is a Dicrostachys cinerea, of which most of us know that it is where it establishes itself, it closes the whole life around it, and it becomes very thick and very impenetrable. You cannot go through it, and the animals themselves cannot go through it, and where it establishes itself, it suppresses all the native grass species around it. We also have Cormorhiana odorata in the same park, which is very dangerous. You can see the photo here. Where this one establishes itself, it also behaves like Dicrostachys cinerea, and it also covers the entire area. And the worst of it, it is not palatable by any animal species, and also once you burn it, it cannot burn. And it is a big threat to most of the protected areas in Uganda, including Queen, including Makshon, including Kidepo, and now in Philemon, actually all the parks that have been affected. When we did mapping, when we were doing a general management plan, and by then that was 2018-19, we realized by then that over 120 square kilometers were covered by invasives. But when I later mapped the remaining part that was covered by Cormorhiana odorata, also about 30 square kilometers were also covered. This circle here, this is now covered by Cormorhiana odorata. All the northern part of the park is also covered by Dicrostachys cinerea. What did we do? In 2014, we started doing trial measures on how we can manage invasives that had started to close up the whole area. We started having animals escaping from the park, causing human-wildlife conflict, as the doctor showed you, because the grazing area had reduced. So in 2014 to 18, we started creating sample plots on what we can do. We started with different approaches where we would do debarking, where we would do cutting, where we would do cutting, uprooting, and burning. And also we tried using Ruthodophoria climber to strangle the Dichorostachys cinerea. So we tried different species. Later, we realized that cutting, uprooting, burning, and follow-up after 6 months can really try not to completely manage it, but try to manage the invasive species by about 70 to 80%, because the area can be open, animals can come back and graze. And we realized for now, you can also do some reasonable area and at least achieve habitat restoration at some percentage. So in 2018, after seeing that at least that one would do for us some meaningful work, we wrote a proposal to our top management that we really can tell you that we have some breakthrough. So we presented our case to top management and we were able to be funded. And in 2016, 19, 20, we are able to remove some hectares, and we started moving on. But as we wanted to continue doing the same, that financial year that followed, we were hit by COVID, and all our resources were closed because tourism was closed. We couldn't continue. But this is what we did when we received the first funding. This was the area that we removed. And this is where we are also doing trial removal of Coromoriana odorata, but very unsuccessful, because at least for Dichorostachys cinerea, we can comfortably tell you that with the manual removal, where you have funds, where you have manpower, you are able to achieve. But with this Coromoriana odorata, every time we remove, it comes back, we remove, it comes back. So for it, we cannot tell you that we have done some reasonable work that we can say maybe we are able to manage, and it is colonizing these habitats at a very high rate. So this is how work is done. You first come, cut, remove the cuttings, put them aside. The way you are seeing here, this is the Dichorostachys thicket. This one here we had cut. So this people removing, you put them aside, you dig and follow with the roots, where the roots, because you know it also sprouts from the roots and the seed. So we remove with the roots, we heap them aside, and we burn. Then after 6 months, we come back, we also do the same, and you see some area now coming with grass. And normally when we do this and we are lucky to have some fires, we burn. And when we are burning, what comes, the sprouts are weak. And these Dichorostachys cinereas are regimes. They are fed on by antelopes and even elephants. So here, this is where we had come back to do the regrowth. And why we like manual, it's because for it doesn't disturb the environment. You just target the area that is affected. So here, this is the area where we are removing regrowths. You just come for the Dichorostachys. After removing it, you leave the area intact. And all these photos. So when we did that, this photo here is where we are seeing some recovery. And Uganda cobs, we would see them coming back. And yes, we would now comfortably talk that we are trying to manage. Then in 2022, after COVID, our then senior manager, ecological monitoring and research, he's now retired, visited me. He was doing a round of visits in all protected area to see what we are doing. He came to Torres America Wildlife Reserve after coming from Queen and Lake Mburo. This is where actually when this problem came of invasive, all the parks, because it was a cry to Uganda Wildlife Authority, they told us to start trying. So in Queen, they were doing it. In Lake Mburo, they were doing it, and almost everywhere. But when he came to visit me, he found I took him to an area where we had removed, and the area had recovered. When you see, this is where we're standing, and the area had recovered. He had come from Queen, where they were doing both manual and mechanical. But in Queen, the problem was too big, and the outcry was very loud. That's where, and the pressure was too much. We had pressure from tourists, we had pressure from tour operators, and we had pressure from communities, because tourists would come, they would not see animals. Tourists would come, they don't see anything, and animals would started going out of the park. So we, out of the cries and the quick response in Queen, they had to use mechanical. And for Lake Mburo, they were still using manual, because they also have acacia hokai, which you'll see later. So when he came, he had to say, at least you people are doing a good job. So from here, we can roll out manual, because we had done a big area and the results were being seen. So this is him who had come to visit us, and he recommended that across the entire Ua estates, for now, we need to adopt manual removal. You follow the tree, you just target what you want to remove. So after his visit, we again wrote another proposal, and we submitted it to World Bank. And by that time, we were targeting 1,200 hectares. This is still in Torres Muriki. And in Q1 of financial year 2023, we got the funds for these hectares. And in 2023-2024 financial year, we were able to remove 334 hectares. And the map you are seeing here is where we had removed. Yes, on the map, it is small, but on ground, when you go there, it is a reasonable area, and we saw some results. The area that is infected by Dicrostachys, if I can show you, I don't know if you are able to see, I don't have a pointer, but all this area coming like this up here. Then here, all this area coming with this river up here is Chromoreana odorata. So almost the entire park is taken. So this is the pictorial view of what we are doing when we got the funds to eradicate 1,200 hectares. We had to engage communities who are registered as CBOs, and they had to come. It is very dangerous to actually bear work on it manually. You must have PPEs, you must have helmets, you must have strong gumboots, gloves, heavy duty, and this is how labor intensive the Dicrostachys is. You see, we remove, after removing hip, burn, the way I had explained to you. Now, that was the case for Torres Muriki. Anyway, what I need to tell you, in January 2024, I was transferred to Lake Mburo, and I left the work of Torres Muriki. Now, I haven't gone back to see the progress, but that is the far I had gone when I still was in charge of ecological monitoring and research, and most especially invasive management as part of my key output area in the department. So in 2024 January, I got to Lake Mburo, but even before going there, I knew they had this problem of invasives, and I still got interested in invasive, despite the fact that when I was transferred to Lake Mburo, I was transferred as the head of department or head of law enforcement and operations, but still the operations are done in the park. And having had all this long background of invasive management, I was very much interested in what is happening there. So this is a brief background of Lake Mburu National Park. It is 370 square kilometers, also lies in western Uganda, as you are seeing on the map. And it lies in the districts of Chiruhura, Mbarara, and Sinjiro. And the unique part of it is that much of the wildlife, this is the map. Much of the wildlife actually stays. This is the main road that goes to Kampala, but much of the wildlife stays outside. These people are pastoralists, and formerly pastoral communities don't hunt. So the animal wildlife would live harmoniously with domestic animals. But as things went on changing, land use changed, we started experiencing cases of poaching and wildlife killing around this area. And now, away from invasives, management is trying to make sure that this place, we have an electric fence to control this human-wildlife conflict, and all these animals, we are supposed to translocate them when this place is when we have electric fence around here, and we bring them back here. We also have a lot of cattle grazing around this community, and they have also degraded the park so much because they keep coming in a way of also saying that our animals are coming out, your wildlife is coming out, it is in our farm, it is taking our water, so it's kind of revenge. But we have decided that all this park be fenced to reduce the human-wildlife conflict that happened there. That was away from invasives. Also, Lake Mburu protected area is largely a savanna ecosystem with open woodlands. It derives its name from the lake, which is Lake Mburu. When you see all this area down here, this is Lake Mburu, and this part is the green one. These are management zones, but this is a tourism zone. The reason is it has open savanna with the different acacias, and this is where we have tourism activities taking place because they are able to see big herds of animals. Invasives in Lake Mburu, we have several of them, and you can see the list here. And this is the map that is showing the distribution of all these invasives. Almost when you see there, almost the whole park is taken over by invasives. But the biggest challenge that we have is of Acacia hawkeye, and it is estimated that over 38% of the park has been covered by invasives. But good news is this problem was detected, and Acacia is also not like Dicrostachys cinerea in managing it. However, almost they behave the same. They have regrosses every time we remove them. But when it was detected early, they started removing it, and the big area has been worked on. These tourism areas that I have shown you. They are now open, and for them they also adopted a method of always coming back and removing, coming back and removing. At least when you go there, the problem is not as big as in Torosemuriki, as in Makshoni, as in Queenie. And because of the some value they get from acacia as firewood, people are very actively wanting to get involved in the removal of this acacia hawkeye. And they also use the multiple methods of removal, and this is how it looks like in the areas that they haven't worked. I cannot tell you that they have done the whole of it, but they are still going ahead, but with the successes being seen. But only every time they come back and remove. So these are areas called the Kajuma where they haven't done. a lot of work. They haven't reached this area. They started by concentrating in the areas of tourism zone, but they are speeding up and going this area. And for them, they used different approaches. One is manual. You will see the details down, but manual, they also cut, uproot, burn. And then they also, in 2015 March, they translocated giraffes. They translocated 15 individuals, where 4 were males and 11 females. But as of July, when I left there, coming to coming to Queen, they had over 92 individuals. Now we are thinking of translocating them, because we are thinking now they are inbreeding, so we need gene diversity. We are also thinking that the number has grown and we need to distribute them in other protected areas. And these have also helped so much in controlling the acacia. So this is in the areas where we put them, really they have managed, and the details you will see. But where they come, they feed on them, they browse the acacias, and the regrosses, we also put casuals who come and remove those regrosses and clean the area. It's like maintaining a farm, and it has worked for UA, for Lake Mburo, for us very well. So this is the practical way how it is done. In this picture, they were removing the regrosses and they were heaping them aside and burning them. So the approach, I'm saying here, the approach is not any different from the one we use in dealing with Dichrostaceous. So this is the area that they had cleared. It is looking beautiful and it is looking good. So this shows zebras and impalas grazing together in an area where they had worked on Acacia hokai. They also have Parthenium. I'm happy somebody will be presenting about the biological control of Parthenium. It is also a very big problem for us here in Queen, for also Lake Mburo. They are trying to remove it, but still with no success. So this is how it looks like when you are opening up a new area. You cut, burn, and this is firewood. And the Ankwere area is the firewood stressed area. So what happens is this firewood is taken out and sold to schools and even communities. So every time a lorry goes outside, we earn from, actually we make revenue from this firewood, and we plow it back to open up more areas. That's why Lake Mburo, I think, is doing a very great job. Also, communities are willing to come. When you give them a plot, you say this is your plot, maybe a hectare, you clear it, remove the firewood, and do it to the standard that we want, and the payment is firewood. They are still willing to do that. So we use the funds, the budget, our budget. At the same time, we can also use communities who are willing to come and clear and take firewood. So this is what we do. And again, every trip of firewood that is filled out, they pay a fee to UA that comes to our consolidated fund, and we earn from the invasives, and we later plow it back in managing the same invasives. So this shows how the giraffes that were translocated there are trying to also do their work. This is the area of acacia, and where they are grazing, they remove, and where we have some regrosses around this area, that is where we come back. So this is an area we can comfortably say that the biological control, in addition to manual, has been maintained. We see big herds of buffaloes coming back and feeding and grazing freely. So this is how biological control has helped in controlling also the acacia hokai. Yes, to Queen Elizabeth Conservation Area, this is where the problem is too much. because the available literature tells us that over 50% of the area has been covered or invaded by different invasive plant species. And this is the entire area, 2,465 square kilometers. It includes Queen Elizabeth National Park, Shambura Wildlife Reserve, and the Kigezi Wildlife Reserve. So when you add all of them, this is the total area, 2,462 square kilometers. It is also located in the western Uganda, and this is specifically where it is located, and it borders with Democratic Republic of Congo, and it is also shared by two lakes, Lake Edward and Lake George, and they are connected together by Kazinga Channel. The habitat types at Queen Elizabeth Conservation Area, it also has a diversity of habitats. It has water bodies. This is Lake Edward, this is Lake George, and there are different crater lakes within Queen. And it is a man and biosphere reserve where we have human beings coexisting with wildlife. For the time Queen Elizabeth has stayed, and currently we have 11 fishing villages. People are around these lakes and this channel. They do a lot of fishing, and they are now legally there. The reason we are now man and biosphere reserve. The vegetation type, we have savanna grasslands, we have tropical forests, we have, by the way, another unique thing of Queen Elizabeth. In one of the areas, we have an underground tropical forest in Chambura where we have chimpanzees, and not only that, we also have forests in the south where we have also chimpanzees, and we have variety of mammal species, bird species, and plant species in Queen Elizabeth Conservation Area. But our focus is invasives for now. As I had already mentioned, Queen Elizabeth Protected Area is always purely a savanna ecosystem. However, vegetation kept on changing, and because of, one, reduced grazing pressure, two, because of changes in fire regimes and brought about by climate change, and we started seeing most of the area closing up. And invasives like Parthenium, Dichostachya cinerea, Coromoriana, Odorata, Lantana camara, Pontia, very many of them are around here, and they have covered most of this area. I think partly it's these invasives are attributed to human activities. Imagine 11 community villages living in a protected area, and the activities they do, the way I saw how invasive species are spread across the world, I suspect it is also contributed to the human presence within a protected area. Yeah, as I had already mentioned, over 50% of the park is covered by invasives. So not any different from Taurus Muriki when the park started covering up. Also, different treatments were applied that included manual biological control, where beetles were introduced to feed on the invasives, but when they were introduced, now they also became food for others. So we don't know where the beetles went, so that didn't work. The mechanical control, yes, this one we adopted it because of the pressure that we were getting from tourists, the pressure that we are getting from politicians, the pressure that we are getting from even top management, the ministry, and also tour operators, because Queen Elizabeth is one of the top tourism destinations in the country, and it earns the government a lot of money. So every time tourists come and they are not satisfied, the pressure comes back to management. So with that pressure, we quickly, reactively had to do mechanical, using bulldozers, graders, to grade big area to make sure that maybe we can reduce on the pressure. Yes, from the beginning when we applied it, the area was very open. We opened a big area, over 4,000 hectares, and the animals came back. Tourists were happy. We thought we had managed, but soon after, the outcome was really very bad. It's like we were seeding this invasive, because we opened the seed banks in the soil, those that were dormant. The roots were spread everywhere because there was no sorting. We would just sweep the area. And also, we started seeing other unpalatable plant species coming up because the soil type and the texture had been disturbed. So now we said, what do we do? Because even after that, we saw still the same complaints came. I will show you here. All this area, this background, this is along the track that goes to Mwea Peninsula. All this area was cleared. And I remember one time, I think 2019, I came to benchmark in this area. When I reached with my then supervisor, we were very happy. We were, oh wow, this is good, because the area was open, animals were back, and you would see a very big area worked. But surprisingly, when they started regenerating, the whole area covered up and it was out of hand. Still the same pressure that we had to come back. Now, that is when the senior ecological monitoring and research officer, when he came after visiting Toro Semuriki and seeing what had happened in Lake Mburo and what was happening in Queen with mechanical removal, he had to recommend that we would do small area, but let it be sustainable, let it be meaningfully done. So after his visit, all of us from 2023 to date, in all the protected areas of Uganda, we are currently using manual. Mechanical removal stopped, and I don't think there is any protected area in Uganda which is using mechanical, and we all now went to manual removal. And now here, this involves the cutting, uprooting, burning, and also following up, because the problem that we are managing in Queen specifically is the Ecostachus area that has covered the biggest part, where our tourists use it to come and view animals. So to date, using manual removal, we have been able to cover, this was last financial year, 2024-23, because COVID also had to impact on our work during this period, 2019-2022 there. We didn't do much. So 2023-2024, that's when we have started doing some work, and so far in Queen, we have only done 661 hectares, but our target for this financial year is 500 hectares, and the work is about to commence. And we are hoping to also do more removal from these areas where this area of 761. Yes, this I needed to share with you. This is the area that were removed, and I think when Joseph came to Queen and the pressure was too much, you see this area here and here. This is the road that goes to those of us who could be knowing Queen, this is the road that connects the Queen headquarters, Katunguru, to Ishasha sector. And you know, tourists use this road so much. So when Joseph came to Queen and also was under pressure, he came as ecological monitoring and research. He also said, what do I do? Manually, let us open some distances away from the road, where tourists, when tourists are going, are able at least to view some animals. So he had to remove this area. He worked on this area and this area, and currently this is how it is looking like. But when he was doing it, this is how the place was like. And I think this is almost there. We haven't come back, but even now when you pass, you see animals are there. The area is still not closed up, because the manual one, you only target the remove it. So you see, at least we have some area. When tourists are moving, they are able to see some few animals, they are able to see some open area. However, the immediate area is still closed up. It is still closed up. We need to do a lot. Here, this is another area where they work using funds. Actually, we were lucky to get some funds from World Bank. This is another area that was bringing us a problem. It is the other area where they had also the immediate photos I just showed you. This goes to the channel. It is called the channel track. We were able to remove also some reasonable, about 164 hectares. And now the area is looking like this, because I took this photo myself recently when I was moving along the channel with a drone. Animals, elephants are very many along the track. Tourists are always enjoying this area and we have a big number of tourists that use this road. Some tracks along this road, when you divert off, of course, are closed up, but at least we are able to say that we have had some work done and seen using manual, and we are able to also tell people that we can do some work given the resources. Here we also, this is another tourism area that is called Kasenyi. This is how it looks like. This was, actually, it is still our prime tourism area, where we are able to see lions, cobs, but unfortunately this area has been covered up. So when Joseph was here, he wrote a proposal to WWF. They were able to fund us and also remove 200 hectares, and this is how work is also done. Not any different from Toro Semunik, the approach is the same. When they did this, of course, the area has opened up. You'll see later before. And when I also came and took over from him, in the last quarter, I added 150 hectares in this area of Kasenyi. And good news is, where we have also worked, animals are seen. Tourism tracks that had closed in that area have now been reopened. And after seeing the fruits of the work we have done, our concessions officer recently told me that he wanted to take the developer to put a hotel. So that shows that as a factor as constant, manual can result into meaningful work. So this is the area of Kasenyi, where we have been working. We can see animal numbers coming, and yes, we are doing this to basically restore the habitat. And we are also doing this, we're aware that in adaptive habitat management, we experiment by doing. And one reason we are here is to share with you our experience. You guide us, correct us, and we know that we manage together. Yesterday, Professor was telling us that this is no longer an ore problem. This is no longer, actually, to me, it is definitely not an ore problem. It is going to be a global problem, because the same problem is happening everywhere. in other countries. And this is also going to be, I think, if not the first invasive species, will be the second, if not the first threat to habitats or wildlife protected areas after poaching. So we need to come together as we are doing to make sure that a lot of work is done to restore these habitats. And we cannot afford to lose the habitats, as the Professor Fred was saying yesterday. So now this is our entire area. It is along the channel of 350 hectares. I found when Joseph had done 200, I have added 150. And in the 200 where Joseph had worked, now they came back and have done the rigorous removal. And now, I did 150. We are hoping in January we shall come back and do the rigorous removal such that the area is maintained. If we do it at an interval of 6 months removal, then we enhance the restoration with planting the native grass. We are able to realize some successes. This is work that is done. This is the part of the area that is left that needs to be done. So a lot has to be done. Here is the area that we mapped where work was done in 2024. This is along the channel track where I was showing you the elephants. Here, Joseph and the team had done 165 hectares. Then along the other road that I told it goes to Ishasha, he had done 265. And these areas, he did the first removal. And these are areas where we had done mechanical removal. So now, in this financial year, we are supposed to come back and again work on this. We are now thinking of definitely enhancing the rigorous with the seeding and also planting. We want to try it and see what we shall or what will happen, because I had done it in Torsemriki. It worked very well. I hope even here it can work. So this is also a map showing the area. This is the first area. This one where he had removed 200 hectares. So now this is the area where I have also removed 150 hectares. So it was done along the channel because we are doing this to at least try and create the grazing area of most of the antelopes in this area, because we have about 4 prides of lions that stay with them, and the more we don't clean, the more the prey or the antelopes keep moving to the communities. And in the last months, we have been battling with cases of lions moving to the community. If Lawrence is around, he can testify to that. But when we work on this one, actually in this area alone, when we are still even working on it, animals came back and we had lion kills. They started hunting and they were killing from this area. And every time you go there now, you are able to see animals. Yes, I tried to do a patrol in that area to see the rate at which animals have come back. This was a one-day patrol that I conducted. I moved around this area together with my colleagues. This is what we were able to see. These were animal sightings. And these were in herds. Find a herd of 10 elephants, a herd of 20, waterbacks, 12, 10 buffaloes in herds, and they are evenly distributed along this area that we have worked. Yes, I'm rushing towards the end. Now, these are challenges that we still face in the management of these invasives as an institution, as a country, because the professor was also here. He agreed to us that to date, there is no scientifically proven effective invasive management approach in Uganda and more research is still needed in this area of invasive management. And now that we have different experts attending these workshops, they will share, and they have already started sharing their experiences. We should be able to really manage together. The current manual removal is very labor intensive, extremely labor intensive, very laborious, because you first cut. After cutting, you uproot. After uprooting, you correct and heap together. After that, you uproot following roots, because the smallest root that you leave in the soil will sprout. So you try to make sure that we follow, and we put together and burn. So it is very costly to the extent that currently, to remove 1 hectare of invasives in Queen Elizabeth, you need to spend Ugandan shillings 4 million. That is the first cutting, the first removal. Then when you are coming to remove the regrowth, you need to pay 2 million. So if you calculate that together, it is a lot of money that is needed. And of course, the area that is invaded is big. Even when I'm saying that the manual removal, I've tried to open up some areas, but still the problem is very big. I don't think manual alone will be able to help us manage this problem. The last challenge is that the use of chemical method in Uganda is still restricted by law. And now that we are talking of chemical, we need to do also a lot of studies in the soils, in the plant, and see if we can convince people, our government, to make sure that we use it. And this has to be done through benchmarking with the other countries, because we need to be very careful in applying this chemical in our protected areas, because these protected areas are very fragile. We can't simply say yes. We definitely need first to do a lot of studies, a lot of understanding, see where it has happened. Because I was reading at one of the herbicides that is used, where they were saying that where you apply it, you need to first remove all animals until it is out of the soil. I don't know how that we quarantine the area, we condone off all that area to make sure that no animal comes to feed in that. So we need to study carefully on how chemical method can be used in Uganda. But I also believe, given the problem that we have, we need to try and see how we can incorporate both in some areas, or where possible, we can go chemical after really understanding that it can work for us. I think I've taken you through very fast, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to listen to me.
Thank you so much for that in-depth look at the problem. It certainly is a wicked problem with all sorts of social and ecological dimensions to it. It really helps to understand it in depth. And now that we know the problem, we are going to start looking at the potential solutions. And with that, I would like to hand over to Lorraine